Hello everyone and welcome to this video. I'm not sure what I'm gonna call it, but pretty much it's just gonna be an update about where I've been, what I've been doing, why I've been absent, specifically for YouTube. YouTube is what I'm mainly focused on because the last video that I've done, or at least uploaded, was the home safety hotline back in May. And while I did have a lot of plans, especially with like live streams of certain games and such, nothing's been going the way I hoped. Because even so, the last time I streamed was Silent Hill 2, which was about 4 to 5 months ago. Probably around the same time. I've had like a lot of games that I wanted to stream, such as Stray being one of them, and maybe like 123 Solid Mystery 2. Just some stuff for me to stream in the background and just have fun with. Even some more FNAF fan games, such as Healerland. That one I've been wanting to do, but things just been super busy. I've been very drained with my retail work because, yeah, I work in retail, no biggie there. And that with how a lot of stuff has been going on in terms of family's health, it's been a mess. Don't worry. As far as I'm aware, my family is fine for now. They've been getting better. There's just some concerns at the time. And as someone who just has my parents, well, I do have my grandma still, and my uncle and aunt, but it's just, I can see like their health declining over time, and as someone who's like the biggest gap between my like youngest parent is like 35 to 40 years, it's a massive leap. So that's been also on my mind. But enough of that. What's the direction going to be for YouTube? That I'm uncertain. I want to try to make like more videos, more live streams. Gabe is still the one that edits my videos from time to time, but I know he doesn't just edit my videos. He edits his own and a couple other people's, so it also depends on what he feels like editing. And I have lost my own editing software license, so I no longer have like the full capabilities. Yeah, I've just been trying to figure out what to stream or record and when I can do it. Because in the background, I've also been working on my Five Nights at Freddy's fan game series. The one that's been the main focus is Return of Phantom Part 2, which I did upload a trailer on it, I think last year. Yeah, a year ago. That's still being worked on. We're actually near completion for at least the base game. I'll get to more work on that. But between doing that and just trying to push through my already horrible sleep schedule and exhaustion and worry and all that, it's just been a lot to juggle around, especially with a lot of stuff that's going on in the real world. And I'm pretty sure anyone who's seen like the news of wherever they at probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Like internet and everything. It's just everything's going down. And I'm just trying to keep up to date about what is actually happening versus what people are thinking are happening, and it's just a lot to juggle around. I keep getting my head wrapped around to it to the point that I sometimes just waste away, play mobile games. And I only play like 2 or 3 of them. Mainly tycoon-related ones. But yeah, I've just been trying to keep myself mentally stable for the most part and push through. I did want to also make this video not just to update things, but also to do like a Q&A type thing about like my stuff, and not just answer questions that people have asked, but also answer questions that I think people might be wondering. Before I go to the ones that are GameJolt, I'm going to do the ones that are on Discord. I do have a Discord server, but it's been pretty much dead for the most part. I still try to update things there whenever I can and try to be active somewhat. A person did ask me how many games are there going to be in the Knights of the Phantom series, or as I call it, the Phantom Entertainment series. To answer this question, I started like the story of this, or tried to, back when I was in middle school. So like a long time. I was like in like starting to become high school, and I still remember it that I had like a piece of paper and I just drew like 6 different eyes. And I was having like the ideas of having 6 different games for different things. And I was very inspired by a lot of things. Five Nights at Sonic's Maniac Mania before the controversies. I also was inspired by Jollies and Final Nights 4 with the whole investigation type thing. I've just in Five Nights at Wario's as well. There's just so much fan games out there that were very impactful that it blew like a lot of my knowledge. If anyone who ever played Return of Phantom V1 can also see that with Smiler being in there. I'll get to more about that later, but initially there was 6 games in total planned, but eventually over time, if you count part 2 not being like part of like part 1 and not a separate game, there was approximately 4 games being planned. 2 of them are out, but one game page is public, which I'm pretty sure many people know of, was Sinister Dreams, one that I have made a trailer for so many years ago. That one is still going to be made, but it's been postponed. While I was waiting for the assets for Return of Phantom Part 2, because I was stuck in like an area where I relied on people to make the renders, so that way that I could put it together, because I do have a small team of just 2 other people right now, which is Gabe, who's editing my video right now. He's been voice acting the Night Guard. He also does some voice acting for Showtime Lit. He also does like sound effects that you will eventually see. In fact, I think in a demo it shows that he did the voice effects of like the breathing of the mask, which makes sense because he's a Night Guard. And he's also did the biggest part, which is the soundtrack. So like the ambience, the menu music, that's all pretty much him that did it, which I still enjoy a lot of. He did a great job, in my personal opinion. I just had to make sure that I tweak each volume so that way that they're not too loud or too quiet for people in certain nights. And then there is Kai the Raccoon, otherwise known as Kyle. He's the modeler and makes half of the renders. Gabe's also makes renders too, I forgot to mention, but yeah. Kyle's the one who basically helped make this project an actual fruition. He started with Sinister Dreams when we were starting to make it, and then when I went to make version 2, I decided to actually make a 3D game, fully 3D, as part 2. And a lot of people are like going to be questioning, why is it from 2D to 3D all of a sudden? I do have an answer to that. The answer is not going to be said yet, because it would be kind of explained in the lore, and I don't want to blurt out all the lore until I pretty much finished all the games I have planned. But yeah, there's Knights of the Phantom, the first installment, Return of Phantom, the second installment, and then Sinister Dreams, the third installment. There is a 4th installment kind of planned, but I might change on how that is, or I might just disregard it altogether. I'm not entirely certain. Yeah, so far, there's going to be 3 confirmed installments, 4 if you include part 2 being its own installment. It does use its own save file, but it will be reading off a bit from the save file of the first part. Which, another thing, if you beat the entirety of part 1 and notice a star missing, that's just because that final star is you completing part 2, which I haven't gotten to it yet. We're getting to it. Another thing is that will you reveal the entire lore of the series once all the games are finished? That is possible. I'm not going to say for certain if I'm going to or not. That is up to the debate. And then on to GameJolt. Will there be sequels and tycoons and prequels and spin-offs and upcoming projects and future projects? Oh boy. Well, I pretty much tried to explain it all, but there might be some that everything's going to be like a sequel. There's not going to be a prequel. Everything's in order from the years of 89, 91, and 97 for the 3 games. That's all I'm going to say for a time being. Tycoons, I have no idea how to make. I don't think I'm going to do that if you're talking about like Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator style. I don't think that's going to be a possibility. Spin-offs. The closest thing to a spin-off that I might do is like an Ultimate Custom Night type thing, but I am not going to say for certain if that's going to be an actuality or if that's just something that I'm hoping to do, because again, there's 2D and 3D, and we either have to make this all 2D, all 3D, try to merge the two, and considering I'm the one that did all the artwork for the 2D stuff, it's the animations are the most draining part of 2D in my personal opinion. Doing the jump scares was the most dreadful thing for me. I could make the rooms, I could make the characters moving about. That was no problem. It was the jump scares. In fact, if you take a look at V2 versus V1 of Return to Phantom, you could see that there was a bit downgrade of the jump scares, but that's just because I didn't want to suffer through burnout while doing so. And also, I'll admit, with version 1, I did use other jump scares as references, whether it's from like Ultimate Custom Night or someplace else. And no, I did not trace over it. I just did like the poses over it and then did it in my own style. But still, I'm not very proud of that. Version 2, everything was made by me. I did not have any references, really. I just came up with whatever I could. One project I eventually want to make that I can profit off of is an RPG game called the Digiverse, which is based off of around my main Sona Digi. I have like a whole backstory planned, how the mechanics are going to work. The problem is, how am I going to make it happen? That is something I don't know if I can do with the small team that I have. Who knows? Will there be a custom night mode, and tycoon mode, and endless mode, and classic mode, and nightmare mode, and survival mode, and hardcore mode, and story mode? Man, a lot of stuff to be asked. There will be a custom night mode. In part 2, under the extras application, there will be a custom night thing. The reason why it has to be under the extras is because Return of Phantom Part 2 is such a gigantic file as it is, with just the basic nights alone. And you might be wondering, why the hell is it so big? It's because of the fact that it's heavily, and I mean heavily, inspired by Five Nights at Wario's 3, where each night you move to a different location. And unlike Five Nights at Wario's 3, where they just take the same stock image and all that, we actually take the time and place the character in a different section of the room from the camera, and make special animations and stuff like that. And it's just, even with JPEG, it's just so much images, so much framework. Click Team is not built up for that. In fact, the only reason why it can still be done as big as it is because Click Team 2.5 Plus exists. If that didn't exist, there would be much more limitations that Scott Cawthon had with Ultimate Custom Night, which he made before the 2.5 Plus add-on was even a thing. So thank God for that, for doubling my storage. Endless mode, I'm assuming that means like survival mode. For part 2, I'm not so sure if I'm going to bring that back. We'll have to see. Classic mode, that's pretty much what custom night is going to be, unless you're talking about like the fact that you play like 5 or 6 nights in just the main office. I don't know. You guys have to let me know if that's something you really want. Nightmare mode. I'm not so sure exactly what that means, unless you're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's 4. If that's the case, I don't think so. If it's all max mode, then yeah, that'll be a thing in custom night. Hardcore mode. Now, here's the interesting thing. In Return of the Phantom version 1, there was a hard mode made that is the second half. It had nothing really to do to the lore except for the fact that it was just nightmares of the night guard. So every night he goes to sleep, he would have a dream of the place being burnt down and everything. Everything was more like hallucinations, and the only thing that was added to that was the fact that instead of buying plushies, you bought dev notes, which was basically just me describing my journey of making the game. But at the end of the day, it was actually replaced in V2 by part 2, because I wanted to make things a bit more interesting, and I wanted the story to make more sense, which to many people, apparently it doesn't make sense. How it's from 2D to 3D. There's a lot of reasons why I made it that way, not just the fact that not everything's under my shoulders, but there's an actual explanation as to why this happened, but I won't get into that until part 2 is released, because things will make sense then. And story mode, that's pretty much what the main nights are. You're just going through and learning as you're going. Yeah, so some questions that I think people might have, starting with Knights of the Phantom, is, will the Android and iPhone versions still exist? That is something that I was still trying to debate on, but I wanted to make sure that the game was fully complete, and considering that I still have yet to do the achievements, it's questionable. But the problem is that from what I've seen on the internet, Google has been doing a lot of stuff with their Android stuff to prevent third-party installations. So I don't think I'll be able to do that anymore. As for iOS, unless I have like an emulator for the MacBook, I don't think it'll be possible, unfortunately. Also, the achievements. The achievements are technically already coded in the build that I have. It's not up yet. And we finally have the icon set up, so I will eventually make an update for the achievements. It'll be version 2.5. Yeah, that will be up there. In terms of like the older versions where it used to be called Knights of the Phantom Origins, there was 2 builds that existed on the internet. And they are pretty much removed, but I still have the applications, but I don't have the build anymore. That one was supposed to be made to be like an investigation like Final Nights 4, if I recall correctly. And yeah, it wasn't going to really work well because burnout, more burnout, and just everything. And the fact that it's at Origins, there wasn't even an actual like Knights of the Phantom game, so it really did not make any sense, and someone complained about that, so I just decided to put that behind the doors and make an actual Knights of the Phantom. Also, the phone guy, it was the game Salmon. I was a big fan of his and caught him at a very lucky time to voice act. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get him back for future projects or to redo the lines for version 2, so whatever was done is still there, which kind of sad, but I'm just grateful that he was even a part of it, because he didn't really have to, but it was like my biggest motivator. And what happened to the characters of version 1, and this is something that is very like a lot of stuff has happened in the past that I'm not very proud of, but I've gotten a lot better at over time, and I've had clashes with people that I did have permission to use their characters in my games with credit, of course. Over time, things got a bit messy, and they asked politely for me to remove their characters. So that heavily prompted me into making a version 2 to avoid those things and also give me an excuse to fix the coding, rewrite the story to be better, and I think that I did a pretty good job at it. I've been getting a lot of compliments, at least with Return of the Phantom. Before I go to Return of the Phantom, Five Nights at Kitty's. It is officially canceled for good. There was a point in time where it did look like the creator, that like the artist and the story maker, was going to come back to it after Security Breach came up. It looked like it was about to give her like back the motivation to make the game. However, over time, she just decided to scrap it anyways. It's a sad thing, too, because a lot of people seem to be more into Five Nights at Kitty's than my own series, and I get it. I'm not fully hurt by it, but it's just disappointing, especially since I had fun coding the game and even voice acted for the phone guy. Eventually, things just went down. Yeah. You could tell I did not prepare for this really at all. So, Return of the Phantom Part 1. Yeah, the voice acting has been demolished. Back then, it gained a lot of popularity, and I had a big group of people that were willing to help me, and it was like a big thing because it was a big project. Return of the Phantom alone, both version 1 and version 2, were bigger projects than I initially wanted it to be, but I honestly have no regrets of it. It was frustrating, but fun and felt rewarding at the end. And yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a lot of voice acting for version 2. In fact, because of the lack of voice acting, I scrapped it all together to where it's only voice acting for Shadow, because that's part of his mechanic, and Showtime Lit, because, well, the character who owns it is, well, Gabe. Yeah, it was just a lot of letdowns, but at the end of the day, you can only do what you can with what you got. And also another thing, Knights of the Phantom and Return of Phantom Legacy Edition. I do plan on recoding version 1. I'm not recoding it too heavily. I'm just trying to fix up what was broken and make it playable and stable without changing like the graphics or anything. I'm actually very close to completely doing Knights of the Phantom Legacy Edition to where it's pretty much stable as can be. The only thing I'm unsure about is all max mode. but at the same time, Scott Cawthon never intended all max mode to be beatable in the first game, so I might just leave that behind and focus on everything else, which is already stable, so I might upload that soon. And I'm also going to do the same with Return of Phantom, because I feel like even with all the stuff that's happened, people still enjoyed Return of the Phantom the most, whether it's version 1 or version 2. And I still kind of want to try to fix things in version 1 the best I can, just to see if it's possible to bring that back up and maybe make it better. Because the Legacy Editions, while outdated story-wise, people seem to have fun with, like, Return of Phantom, and I don't know, I just feel like people have not gotten to experience it the way I intended it to be, so I want to see if that's possible for me to actually make that actuality. But everything there is completely outdated, and V2 is what's more accurate for the story. And also Smiler, yeah. When I was making Return of Phantom V2 and even Part 2, there was a big controversy about Smiler, and a lot of people were questioning if Smiler was going to be removed while I was making it. And initially I wasn't, because at the time I did talk to him and he was showing some signs of getting better. But for the sake of my own, I decided to replace him with someone else. In fact, it's actually talked about it at the post scene of Night 5 in Part 1 that he was replaced, just so that way that there's no backlash, no nothing about it, because whatever Smiler's doing is, I know he's trying to get better, and I understand that. I don't talk to him anymore, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I just don't feel like I want to be stuck in that mess despite of what's going on, so I just thought it was safer to just remove him entirely, just for my own sake. And so the progress of Return of Phantom Part 2. We're very close. Return of Phantom Part 2, as of right now, has Night 5 pretty much completely coded in. Right now, I'm backtracking to test out the bugs, the glitches, make sure that the sound files are okay, because I noticed that some of the sounds were not playing properly, which is what I was worried about with stability, because it seems like when it comes to stability, images are fine, but it's the sound that is the biggest issue, which I am thankfully figuring out ways to fix it, so hopefully that won't be a problem anymore. I still have to make the extras be its own executable just because of the file size. Like, when I go into my builds that I've made for both, Return of the Phantom Part 2 is sitting at 2.63 gigabytes, which is pretty big for a Fights at Freddy's fan game that is made with ClickTeam. And for the extras, it is at 0.97 gigabytes, and that's just the extras alone. That's not with Custom Night at all. It's just for the extras menu. And you guys eventually will see why when I upload it. And of course there will be updates once the base game is out. Right now, the only thing that I'm waiting on for the base game is the voice actor for the phone gal, because I had her replaced. The person who's voice acting as her now is dealing with college and work worse than me. So I'm just trying my best to be very patient with her, and I highly suggest that you all be patient as well, because she's a very hardworking person and deserves to have her break moments and rest moments. But other than that, that's all I'm waiting on. If you guys are that impatient, I can see if I can alter it a bit to where you still can play it, but I don't think that is wise right now. I think it's best if we just wait for the phone gal to finish her lines and then go from there. For the extras menu, I am adding a spoiler thing where if you don't beat certain nights, you won't have access to certain things in the extras. For example, if you don't beat a certain night, then you won't get the jump scares. If you don't beat a certain night that certain characters are only active at then you won't be able to see what those characters are until you beat that said night. So, yeah. And they will be using the same save file. Both the extras and the base game will use the exact same save file, so that way you don't have to worry about anything. In fact, you should be able to see that the save file is the same depending on the main menu of how far you've gotten. However, because of me waiting for the phone gal, I've actually been able to do a lot of things like adding extra sound effects, adding extra secret stuff here and there. And another thing, guys, that this has been a thing for a while. Play Knights of the Phantom or Return of the Phantom, the version 2 edition, either on Halloween or Christmas. You'll get special decorations. And once Return of the Phantom Part 2 gets put out, do so as well for Halloween and Christmas. You might be confused why, because there won't be any decorations because of how many nights there are, but you will eventually see why later down the road. And it doesn't matter what year you do it, as long as you do it on Christmas or Halloween. You'll eventually see when you get to a certain point in the game. Oh yeah, Sinister Dreams. It is still going to be a mix of 2D and 3D. I liked the idea that I had in the demo as well as in the trailer, and I feel like it is better that I keep this stand as the way it is. Another thing that's going to be a thing is that, like, characters are going to be replaced in that, which I don't remember how far the demo was at, but I do know that in the beta edition there was characters added that are eventually going to be removed. But another thing I like to point out is that these characters, from what you saw the demo, are in the trailer, are already going to be redesigned. In fact, I already drew the art of the redesigns, and if you actually take a look at the GameJolt page, you'll actually see that the teasers images that were there have been fully replaced as well. And I did this as a test to see if anyone has noticed that they were updated, but it doesn't seem like anyone has, or at least no one took note of it, which is fine. It is on hiatus after all, but I wanted to still try to have it planned ahead of time so that way that we don't wait 10 billion years. I promise I won't make another game as big as Return of Phantom Part 2. That was much bigger and taking much longer than I was expecting it to be. It's been, what, 2 years since I announced it, and it's still being made. It's just keep like wanting to add more and more and try different things. And part 2 is pretty much just an experimental piece just to see how far my coding can go and how well I can do certain things. So yeah, that's just the way it ended up being. And I will say, for how far I've gotten into the build, like the beta build that you guys haven't seen yet, I am very proud of how far I've come across. It is honestly like a very proud moment in my personal opinion. Even if it's not getting as much attention as I hope, I'm still proud of making it as far as it is. And I can't wait to finally like put it out for you guys to play and experience. Yeah, it's just one of those like very proud things. And in the background, between all this coding and programming and testing and all that, I have been just drawing other things as well. Been trying to redesign a lot of my characters outside of the game series and even making fan art of things. But I'm not sure if I'm going to be putting them out much anytime soon, just because the most stuff I've been doing is reference sheets for my own characters. I eventually will start making like other art at some point. It's mostly probably going to be in like dead Discord channel. That's pretty much all that I have to say for now, all the stuff that I want to get covered. Oh yeah, I'm also going to be working on a project with Kai the Raccoon. I don't know if he's put it up yet. Let me double check. Yeah, it's not up yet, but I'm coding another FNAF fan game for him. It's his game, but I'm the one coding behind the scenes and testing it. It was a game that we initially were going to have done like years ago, and we decided to refurbish it and everything. Just take a look for when it happens. It most likely will start being on track as soon as part 2 is 100% done, like extras and base game work. That's basically our main priority at the moment. If you guys have any other questions about anything, do let me know. Let me know what your opinions are about everything. And until next time, stay safe.